My name is Lilia Weslaty. I'm a journalist. I'm from Tunisia, North Africa. I'm a journalist. I'm working on transitional justice. So that's why I was invited, I guess.
Sure. Okay, thanks. One of the things you were talking about yesterday was, for a start, the West is calling what they call the Arab Spring is an incorrect name for that event. And also the Jasmine Revolution is not what Tunisians call what happened in Tunisia. So could you correct us on the language first, please?
Exactly. I worked for the UNDP. We worked on a book called The Compendium of the Constitutional Process. And we had an interview with an article from an expert, a British one actually. And he was talking about the legitimacy about the election and the process, the constitutional process in Tunisia. And the only problem was that he was speaking about Jasmine Revolution. The thing is the foreign media, all the foreign media speak about Jasmine Revolution. I think France 24, the media France 24 started this thing, but in Tunisia nobody talk about Jasmine Revolution, and it's like an insult because a lot of people died in this revolt. First, and second thing, even the expert, lawyers, professor, Tunisian ones, nobody say that word.
Yes.
Who called the name? Who gave the name of the revolution? It's the people who made the demonstrations.
Yes.
So that's why they called it the freedom revolution, ثورة الحرية والكرامة. In Arabic, if you search in Arabic articles, you'll never find Jasmine Revolution from Tunisian people or Tunisian expert. Never.
So translate that into English.
And in English, it's Revolution of Freedom and Dignity. Why we called it like that? Because when people start doing the demonstration, from Sidi Bouzid, Ngasrin, many little towns, the affected towns by poverty and by social injustice from the former regime, they were asking for three things everywhere. In the videos, you can see it in YouTube, for example. Three things. It was like the pillars of the revolution. شغل, حرية, كرامة وطنية. Work, freedom, and dignity. For example, in Egypt, it was عيش, حرية, كرامة. It was bread, work, and dignity. There is differences. You can, if you follow and from those three words, those three words are the pillar of our second constitution. So we never talk about Jasmine Revolution. It's a revolution of freedom and dignity. And we never talk about Arab Spring.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a Prague Spring. And it's like what we call, I don't know how in French we call a calque, like analogy, making a kind of analogy on the Arab Revolt. We call it just Arab Revolt.
Arab Revolt, great.
Exactly.
Both of those things were really important to clarify yesterday, and it's great to get that recorded. The Constitution is a really interesting aspect, and we had yesterday Birgitta Jonsdottir, who famously in Iceland, they crowdsourced their constitution. How did your constitution come about? What was the process behind it?
It was a long process. The thing is, the first constitution wasn't that bad, 56, 59. But it wasn't a kind of consensus of everybody. It wasn't very representative, even the MPs after the independence. With this new constitution, every article was discussed. And the interaction with people, especially on social media, with their representative was very, very intense. Mm-hmm. It means, for example, when we discussed about the article, the 6th, freedom of conscience, the right to have to choose any religion you want, it was big discussion, big polemic.
Online.
In the parliament, in the assembly, people were discussing about it. The television were broadcasting. The audience. A lot of people were following, and following also on internet, and interacting with their own MPs. For example, an Islamist guy, no, you will not vote for this article. I choose you. I voted for you. I elected you to choose this. So it was a big discussion. Mm-hmm. Online, big pressure on the MPs and in the assembly. Mm-hmm. It was a long process. In the beginning, Beji Qaid Sebsi, when he was the prime minister, after 2011, he tried to oblige the parties to have only 1 year to write the constitution.
Wow.
The funny thing is the elite of our country, lawyers, judges, like many, from the old,
The old regime.
aristocracy, not the old regime, but they are clean actually, but they are they see them, it's like the plateau view, like we know the good things for the people.
Okay, yes.
Like Platon theory.
Right.
So, like the wise people. They start writing their own constitution
yeah.
and give it to the
lucky people.
to the MPs. The elite, many of the lawyers, judges, like the jurists, especially Ben Ashur and all this kind of families, they tried to, they wrote a constitution. I gave it to the MPs, to the deputies. And they didn't understand. They were they knew, the law, they are constitutionalists, they are the people of the law. But they didn't understand the target of the process. It's the process, the importance is in the process.
Yes.
That people discuss about what they want, which kind of vision of of Tunisia we want. The representative, they have the legitimacy of the people who elected them. Everything is based on this legitimacy.
Yes.
So, me, citizen, and the other citizen, we gave to this elected people the legitimacy to think for us about the law, and we can do a pressure on them if they are doing other things via internet. But
yes.
not from the elite and put in 3 days. I said, oh, why they want to take 3 years to write the constitution? We can write it in 1 week. It's not the target, man. It's they didn't understand. But finally, we had those 3 years. The people from the former regime and even people who were involved in the revolution and against the regime, they were saying that it's losing money for nothing. But it wasn't losing money at all, because after 3 years, 26 January in midnight, when in Egypt people were killed and shot by Sisi.
Yes.
In Tunisia, the Islamists and the secular people were kissing each other because the adoption of the constitution was more with 200 vote on 217 deputy, the maximum. So it was big consensus.
Right.
And it took a lot of time. In the beginning, the deputy, the Islamists, and the secular couldn't even talk to each other because it's very, very, no, you are Islamist, no, you are laik, you don't want to, you are atheist. And after 3 years, they knew each other, and they discovered that in this constitution we have more in common than
that's different.
Different, yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. So this is real participatory democracy.
Exactly.
And it took 3 years.
It took 3 years, yeah.
What was significant about the new constitution that was different to the old constitution? What are you most proud of as someone you were connected to this process, weren't you? So what were you most proud of as an individual in that
There is many cool articles.
The participatory democracy side of this, you're clearly very proud of, and so you should be. The image of Islamists and secular and atheists embracing
Not
at the
atheists, but they call them atheists, but they are secular now.
Oh, that's what the Muslims are calling them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Embracing at the end of it signifies a really revolutionary process. So, in that new constitution, what were the aspects that you're most proud of?
For example, this thing. We can say atheist because if someone say you are an atheist, it become a big problem.
Yes.
So we aren't sharing the same value like us. Finally, with this new constitution, we have the Article 6, the article of freedom of conscience, and it was a big fight in the assembly. It was a big fight. It wasn't easy. And
the Article of Conscience, what does that mean? What does it mean for the members of the public in Tunisia? What does that actually mean?
It means to have the right to think and to believe in whatever you want.
Whatever you want, exactly, yeah.
And this is huge.
It's absolutely enormous, yeah, of course it is, yeah.
The Islamists wanted to add, for example, it was big fight. They, in the Article 141, in that period, they wanted to write something like the religion of the state is Islam.
Yeah, of course.
And it was a big mess.
Cool.
big recused by the minority, the opposition, in the assembly. They wanted to add in the preamble, in the introduction, something like the constitution is based on the principle of Islam. So one of the MPs, her name is Samia Abu, she was like, I was in the assembly and she was saying, this is very dangerous if we start talking about the principle, because if we start talking about the principle, we are talking about Sharia, and which kind of Sharia, and it will be like very difficult to resolve, and all our constitution will be based on kind of Sharia. So she was saying like, we have to write the value of Islam, the value that we share, like to love each other, to help the poor, to all these things. And she was discussing, and it was like, finally we put like the value.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
So it was like a big fight for every word. The second thing is like the Article 2, to precise that the constitution is it's a civil regime.
Right.
Because the army is all the time like, even we don't have very weak army.
Yes.
Or like we don't speak about Islamic country.
Yes.
Islamic state, not country, like
exactly.
people.
Yes.
We had to add this second article. When I made an interview with one of the constitutionalists about the first article and the second article, he was like he gave me like the answer. I'm telling you his answer now.
Yes.
The first article in our constitution say that Tunisia is an independent state, that its religion is Islam, its language is Arabic, and its regime is Republican.
Yes.
And this article, we had a big fight in 1959 because of this thing. Because we had the division between the first president and the opposition, the Islamic opposition,
right.
Already like 50 years before.
Yes.
In the new one, we had the same problem. Shall we let the first article with its ambiguity? And this constitutionalist, he told me that this kind of ambiguity, are we talking about the people who are Muslim or the state? Is it Muslim? And it's not very clear in the first article. And he told me, like, as a jurist, that we call it l'ambiguïté constructive, the constructive ambiguity.
Right.
And how the jurist every time in the country will make the interpretation.
Gotcha.
But the new thing is we have now the second article after this first one, precising that it's civil regime,
right?
And it will never be Islamic or military.
Yes, it's a fantastic achievement, and
it was like a lot of
about a word, and 3 years around.
It was a huge thing. Another thing, that there is many articles actually. There is the access to information, Article 32, the right to citizen to have the access to information.
Yes.
Huge thing. And another good thing, like I was all the time with, because I was working a lot with the judge about the process, the judiciary process.
Yes.
And they made like a big lobby, and they were like speaking with the MPs to convince them about a principle, to add a principle in the constitution. Le principe d'inamovibilité. It means like the judge, if you, for example, you are a judge, you are like in the tribunal of Tunis, who can decide from your movement if that you have to move to another tribunal?
Okay, right.
According to our system, it's the High Council of the Judiciary Council.
Yes.
Le Conseil supérieur de la magistrature.
Right.
The High Council of the Judiciary Council.
Yes.
The head of this council before 2011 was Ben Ali.
Of course it was, right.
The executive.
Okay. Yes.
On the judiciary power.
Okay.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous, yeah.
So we had, because of this constitution, we have what we call les instances transitoires. And we created instance like provisoire instance
Yes.
to regulate the judiciary power
Okay.
till we have the new council
Okay.
with voted judge
Yes.
without the executive taking the head of this council.
Taking control of it. Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
And the second thing, nobody can move the judge from his tribunal only with his accord, with his
Right.
okay.
Yeah, okay,
Now
yeah.
we have this principle, nobody can move it.
Okay, gotcha. Amazing.
And it's like in a transparent way.
Yes.
And the movement is like you, for example, you live in Tunis and you want to move to Nebel, to another town because your wife is working there or your kid. So you try to, like it's in a transparent way.
Yes, gotcha.
And nobody, like the executive can't oblige you to do this thing.
Gotcha. They can't force you
And
to.
this is
Yeah.
very important for any citizen because you, citizen, you want to resolve your problem. Someone like a businessman took your business,
Yes.
broke your business, and you want to make a plant.
Yes, a
If you,
complaint.
the executive, know that the judge is good, and he will be like for good for you. So
Yes.
and
Will be just.
it will be just. And the
Yes.
executive want to help the businessman because the businessman helped him for his campaign to be in the power.
I understand. So you've got a law in place that can stop that happening.
Nobody can move the judge.
Fantastic. As a last question, because this is really, I mean, it would be really worth people following this to actually look at the whole constitution, because I think
Just read it.
in a way, it's a model, like the Icelandic one is a model. The last part, if you could just touch on how is participatory democracy continuing in Tunisia? Do you have the same kinds of digital democracies that have been discussed at democratic cities?
Yes. Actually, yesterday, the Minister of Justice with the Minister of the TIC, the technology and things, they
yes.
signed an accord.
Yes, they sign an accord.
Yeah. For to make people know everything that they have to know on internet and to interact easier.
So
Yeah,
you mean
internet.
if you inform the people, then it becomes deliberative democracy. You mean, in other words, they understand all the sides of an issue that's being discussed, or do you mean transparency?
Transparency, but also the access to justice.
Okay,
It will be like very easy to have access to justice.
right.
You are living in the south of Tunisia, you don't know which kind of tribunal you have to do, you have to go, where you have to go, which kind of papers you have to do to sign,
Right.
and all the shitty things, like you never be in
That's
jail.
usually hidden from citizens in most countries in the
Exactly.
world, and you have absolute access to
Finally, now we have this cooperation
Right.
to make the access to justice easier.
that. What effect
for
is this
the
having on
justiciable.
Tunisians? What effect have you seen this have on Tunisians? This whole shift from the new constitution onwards. What's happening in the culture and the society?
There is a big fight, actually. There is a big fight between the old institution and the new institution.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah?
They're not going to give up easily.
No, of
Yeah.
course no. It's a fight. Like it's a constant fight, especially now. The president of Tunisia, Beji Qaid Sebsi, proposed a law of reconciliation with the businessman who worked with Ben Ali.
So predictable. Yes.
It's like insane. The
Yes.
guy, like, actually, our president was the head of the Ministry of Interior in the 60s, and he's like, there is many suspicion about his contribution to torture.
Really?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So he's very much the old guard.
He's like 90 years old now, but nothing. We don't have any proof. There is just testimony, books. And we had like big censorship.
Sure.
Everything. We were in blackout.
So you couldn't prove it, yeah.
But
yeah.
he suggested this law.
Right.
And of course, the whole civil society was against it.
Yes.
L'instance vérité dignité, the instance truth and dignity,
Yes.
supposed to take care of the transitional justice, all the transgression, torture, what we had
Yes.
before, and corruption. This instance made like complaint against to the institution, to the Tunisian constitution,
Right.
the institution,
Yes.
against the law proposed by the president, and the president lost. Yeah. So they tried to put the law again to discuss about it again in the assembly.
Sure.
And we a lot of big movements start doing what we call like مانيش مسامح. I will not forgive. You have to go through justice, and
Right.
after that we can speak about forgiveness. But
Yes.
now you have to be like any other people, person like you, businessman.
So the
And
sort
this
of
law, because this law, the law of reconciliation with the businessmen was just proposed because Nida Tunis, the party of the president,
Yeah.
was supported by businessmen. So he's trying to give them like back their help, like, because they helped him
Yeah, of
to
course.
succeed.
Of
So
course.
he want to.
But the resistance to this process, where the old power is trying to get their power back, the resistance is still very strong, I see.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great.
And this is normal. Actually, we are 7 years after the beginning.
That's
So
really
it's
inspiring.
like, we are very, very in the birth of the democracy in Tunisia.
That's
it's
really
really
exciting.
the birth of democracy.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks so much for your time. I really
Welcome.
appreciate it. Sorry about all the noise, but it's really, really great we got this down. Thanks a lot.